The NFL preseason goes into full swing this week, and what are the expectations now for the Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen after the two sides came to terms on a massive contract extension and takeaways from the incredible weekend at the Pro Football Hall of Fame where not one, but two classes were enshrined in Canton, Ohio. It's all coming up on this edition of the Locked On NFL podcast.
It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On NFL, your daily NFL podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Fire it up. It is the Locked On NFL podcast. Wherever you find podcasts, and of course, now on YouTube, please go subscribe to our channel. If you're watching, thank you. Hit it with a like. Hit us with the alerts so you don't miss any of the daily content coming from the Locked On NFL podcast. Busy show. This one brought to you by our friends over at Peacock and Williamson, the flagship NFL show on the Locked On Network, which features NFL analyst Brian Peacock and, of course, former NFL scout, Matt Williamson, breaking down everything that's going on around the league Monday through Friday, whether it's the latest news, insight on every team, every game, and every move. Get your picks, your news, and insight around the league from Peacock and Williamson. Subscribe wherever you find podcasts. So coming up today, Matt Williamson from Peacock and Williamson was in Canton. He was at the Pro Football Hall of Fame for the Hall of Fame game, watching the Pittsburgh Steelers beat up on the Dallas Cowboys 16-3. He also got to watch the two latest classes get enshrined into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Some takeaways from the weekend with Matt Williamson, the co-host of Peacock and Williamson. Also, Joe Marino. He's going to break down what the expectations are now for Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills after Allen signed a record-breaking contract on Friday. And there were a pair of other big-time extensions that went down over the weekend. We're going to talk to Kyle Krabs about the Xavien Howard restructure, and we're going to get into the Darius Leonard record-breaking contract for the inside linebacker of the Indianapolis Colts. And I'll give you a full rundown of which preseason action you can expect as we really kick things up, actually kick things into overdrive for the NFL preseason. But it was an awesome weekend. Some powerful speeches as we got to watch some of our favorite players of all time. But most recently, of course, you had a lot of players that got their busts, got their gold jackets in Canton, Ohio. You had the class of 2020. Of course, they didn't get their opportunity to speak during the pandemic. So we got to see Bill Cowher, the Pittsburgh Steelers head coach. We got to see guys like Jimmy Johnson. We got to see we didn't get to see Steve Sable. Obviously, he passed away, but of course, NFL Films just changed the way we watch the game. Former NFL Commissioner Paul Tagliabue, Troy Polamalu, one of the greatest safeties to play the game, and kind of changed the way that the position was approached and drafted and fielded. And we had the 2021 class, Peyton Manning, Charles Woodson, John Lynch, Calvin Johnson, just some incredible, talented players that were enshrined over the weekend in Canton, Ohio. We're going to talk, as I said, to Matt Williamson, some takeaways from the weekend. It was back to Canton, and it's fun to celebrate the game. One that you and I all love. Also over the weekend, we had some big time extensions go down, not just the Josh Allen deal that happened on Friday, but we had Darius Leonard, the all-pro linebacker for the Indianapolis Colts, come to terms on a blockbuster 5-year, $99.25 million contract extension. Multiple sources have it. If you're watching on YouTube, it's the rap sheet tweet with the details. He gets $20 million per year over the first 3 years. Deal, gives him $52.5 million guaranteed. And Darius Leonard has done nothing but, play at an extremely high level, coming to the Colts as a second-round pick at a South Carolina State. Not South Carolina, South Carolina State. Darius Leonard getting it done and piggybacking the big-time contract that Fred Warner, the inside linebacker position, got just a couple weeks ago for the San Francisco 49ers. That wasn't the only extension. It was Xavien Howard who was unhappy. He felt like he wasn't being respected from his organization, the Miami Dolphins. They avoided disaster as they are a team with big-time expectations. And Xavien Howard, arguably the best player on that roster, he felt slighted that he wasn't even the highest-paid corner in the cornerback room. Byron Jones had that distinction, but now Xavien Howard, Ian Rappaport, once again, if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see the details of that deal, but he'll get the full amount for 2022, $12.975 million in injury guaranteed with conversion to fully guaranteed the first day of the league year. With more on this deal, our guy who covers the Dolphins for Locked On Fins and, of course, covers the NFL draft for Draft Dudes. He's a guy who's going to join us later in the show, Joe Marino's co-host for Draft Dudes. It's Kyle Krabs.
This is Kyle Krabs of Locked On Dolphins. And crisis has been averted in South Florida. The Dolphins are entering into the 2021 season expecting to compete, but it would have been hard to accomplish that had they lost their best player, All-Pros cornerback Xavien Howard. Howard, at the beginning of camp, officially and publicly requested a trade, citing that he did not feel as though the Dolphins were dealing with him and his concerns with his contract in good faith. And then a minor ankle injury kept Howard out of practice for the course of the past week, which caused even further speculation about if he and the Dolphins were going to be able to come to common ground. But sure enough, on Saturday, Howard strapped up for practice just days before the Dolphins' first trip of the 2021 season, a road trip to Chicago that features not just a preseason game, but multiple joint practices with the Bears. And then before Sunday's practice, it was announced that the Dolphins and Howard had agreed upon a restructure, or as Brian Flores worded it, a renegotiation of the contract that he signed in 2019, giving him incentives in 2021 and more guaranteed money, including a full salary guarantee on the first day of the 2022 calendar year to help Howard ensure he has a little bit more long-term stability and gets financially compensated coming off of a 10-interception season.
17 picks since 2018 for Xavien Howard. Just an incredible number. And look, he's not going anywhere. He's not leaving South Beach. He's not going to leave that talented group, defensive group for the Miami Dolphins as they look to punch their ticket to the postseason after missing out despite winning double-digit games in 2020. We do get to see our first action from the Miami Dolphins. Actually, let's take a look as we're here on the YouTube channel. You can see, I'm going to bring up the schedule here. I'll read it to you guys here on listening on the podcast. But pair of games Thursday night of preseason. It's the Washington football team at the New England Patriots. You've got Pittsburgh taking on Philadelphia in the city of brotherly love, a battle for Pennsylvania. Those are your two games on Thursday. Both kick off at 7:30 Eastern. Also, you've got a trio of games on Friday. Titans at Falcons. That game kicks off at 7 Eastern. Buffalo at Detroit, 7 Eastern kick. And Dallas and Arizona, they'll kick off late 7 o'clock Pacific time, kickoff 10 in the East. And then an absolute just awesome slate on Saturday, starting at 1 Eastern. You have the Dolphins taking on the Bears. You have the Broncos at the Vikings, Browns at Jags. We'll get our first look at Trevor Lawrence, we hope. You have the Saints at the Ravens, a battle for New York despite its being played in New Jersey. The Jets and Giants. Maybe Zach Wilson can shake off a shaky debut under the lights in East Rutherford the other night where he threw 2 picks in a scrimmage. Bengals at the Buccaneers at 7:30 Eastern. Texans at Green Bay. Chiefs and Niners, a matchup of a Super Bowl from a couple years ago. That game's at 8:30 Eastern. Seattle and Vegas at 9 Eastern. Chargers and Rams at 10 Eastern. 7 in the West to wrap up Saturday, the Saturday slate. And then one game on Sunday, August 15th, you have Carolina taking on the Colts and Darius Leonard after he just secured the bag. That game kicks off. It's a 1 o'clock kickoff in the East.